Hello once again, and you're welcome to another time. My name is Harkheindzel Kenny Omiyale, and today we're taking a look at an interesting session on personal economies. This is specifically for the LAMAD community, and one of the things we're looking at is the protocol of sustenance beyond the present system. Now, you can notice that the present system is, the present is in quotation, which means that there's a certain present we will be referring to towards the end of the session. We get to understand what that present system really is and what are the protocols of sustenance beyond this particular system for all of us. Okay, so this was it's just kind of like a flyer for the session, just for you to have a viewing pleasure of it. Okay, so first things first. One of the things I'll be mentioning here is that we have 4 protocols in which we'll be taking a look at, and I will try as much as possible not to overly dwell on all of these protocols so that we can have enough time to really, have the understanding of the fundamentals on it. Okay, so the first protocol we're taking a look at is mental blocks. It's important to start from mental blocks to the place of visioning, and then we take a look at the science of economy. We have some reality check and also understand the rules of engagement. All of these things brings more of the practicality of what we're about to, engage, and have an understanding of. So let's just get right into it. Removing mental blocks. So the first thing you need to think about is this: who taught you dependence? Now, I want you to really take a look at your life from inception. What are the things that you have been shown? What are the experiences that you've been having? What are the things you have been taught? What are the pictures that have always been brought before your eyes that reinforces, that thought pattern wherewith you're supposed to be dependent on people? It could be your culture, that brought about that. It could be the media, it could be the government, it could be your religion, who taught you dependence? Now, this is very important because it helps you to go straight down into the foundation of things. And the question you really have to ask yourself is, why must you be dependent on another person, especially when that dependence is at your detriment? No, now it's okay to connect, and I wouldn't really use the word depend, but it's okay to be connected with someone or something in such a way that it improves the quality of your life. But when you are caused to be dependent on something, on someone at your own detriment, meaning it doesn't allow you to really find the full expression of your giftings, of your personality, of your finances, then there is a problem somewhere. And this is where we're visiting what modern slavery really is. If there is any system that doesn't give you a sense of identity, or that strips you of a sense of identity by giving you anything, any resource for that matter, anything that trades off the sense of your identity, the sense of your competence, the sense of your time and freedom, is actually enslaving you. And that is something we really need to understand and come to terms with, especially, in this time of globalization, technological evolution, and all of this. You must understand this. There is so much subtle modern slavery out there that we don't really understand it. It's become a norm. It's become a culture. It's become a part of our lives. And these are some of the things we really need to begin to understand. So I'll give a very fundamental example. Your mobile phones strips you of your privacy, of your identity, just for what? For social proof. We really need to understand, how much privacy, how much authority we are handing over to another person. And that is the first thing we really need to, do. So the next question you need to ask yourself is, how do you see yourself? How do you describe yourself? Just take a look at it. How have you described yourself today? What are the words that you used? What are the adjectives that you use? Are you using empowering words to describe yourself? Or are you using words that belittle you or do not allow you to expand your consciousness, your wealth, your personality, and your influence? If you keep using words, whether it's been made all right by culture, by religion, by what have you, that is slavery. And these are certain mental blocks that you need to remove, even before we go into the next sessions that we're taking a look at. And that's why the first protocol really deals about your mentality. How do you see yourself? Because you can't advance more than the picture you see yourself. If you don't see yourself great, you can't be great. If you don't see yourself wealthy, you can't be wealthy. If you don't see yourself influential, you can't be influential. If you don't see yourself at the top of things, you can't be at the top of things. It usually first starts with that power of vision. And that goes into your attitudes, the words that you use to describe yourself, and the kind of behavior and thought patterns that you get to process. So do you see yourself as a person? Do you describe yourself as a person? Or do you see yourself as a tribe? That means you're part of a community that has shared values, shared interests, or a commonwealth. Do you see yourself as an institution growing, developing, expanding, scaling? It depends on how you see yourself. Or do you see yourself as a slave? Now, when you really do not have words to describe your personality, your identity, or most importantly, your future, then it means that you are a slave to something, and you're a slave to someone. And so it's important for you to find out what you're really a slave of. Now, one of the things that would become the core of our discussion today is to really find out how economies work, and it's about certain important words that we need to put into consideration. You might write this down if you need to. Resources, source and resources are very important in economy. Currency is important in the economy. When we talked about investment thinking and meeting with the Minister of Finance, we really dealt, into money, currency, and all of that. So that can be a good session for you to revisit to have a better understanding of what we're really talking about. Currency is also important. People management is important for economies and organizations and companies, okay? These are some of the foundational things that affect how strong or how weak an economy is. And now, though we're talking about personal economies, we're going to be taking a look more into that in a bit. It is also important to stress this fact that building economies is not an easy thing. If it was easy, every nation on the earth will have a strong and vibrant economy. That's because there are different factors and there are different things that you really need to consider. And based on your values, based on your preferences, based on your motivations, it really determines the things you select, and the things you select determines how your economy is going to be. So if the health of the people is important to you, then you know that the human resources part of your economy is really going to go well, and that can create a positive effect. But if you have certain values such as lack of maintenance and management, corruption, inferiority, and all of this, then it reduces the potency of your economy. So it's good to look at economy from a national perspective, because that allows us to compare it with the personal perspective that we're really, going into. And there would also be resistance, okay? Building economies brings about a form of resistance because it is not solely dependent on you. You have to consider different things, some things that you have control over and some things that you do not have control over. But the point is, everything starts from your mind. The moment you're willing and you're able and you're ready to do what it takes to remove the mental blocks that you have, then that can be, a very good point to really begin to work towards, growing your personal economy. So that's the first protocol. Let's take a look at the second protocol. And here we're taking a look at personal economy stability. We're going to be taking a look at finding money, reproducing money, economy cycles, and also learning how to connect the dots. This is very important because this is where you begin the building process. If you don't start from finding money, then there really isn't any economy to talk about, because the core of the economy is the cycle of money, the cycle of resources, and making sure that things work the way it should be. Okay, so how do you get your money? You need to understand this. Do you get your money from source, or do you get your money from resource? Okay, it's important. Yeah, it might seem like I'm doing a play with words, but this is very important. Okay, are you getting your money from source, or you're getting your money from resource? Now, so from the source of things, the source of the thing they really say is the sustainer of things. So think about this question. Where do you get your money from, and how do you get your money? Now, that will determine if you're getting your money from a source, or if you're getting your money from a resource. So from a source means that there is a raw material, okay? There is a raw material which you probably need to refine, you probably need to process in order, to become that platforms that empowers, or give vibration to the source of your money. So that is the source. Now, the resource are sometimes the already finished things, or the products, in which you can also use, to get money. Now, it's important to understand what the difference is. It is a lot easier, to get your money, or to see money from resources, which is basically what you do by trading, okay? And it really doesn't have a long-term thing. For the source, when you're able to have a source, then that's a long-term thing. So I'll give you an example. A resource is like you have a generating set that uses petrol. And so you have to buy petrol, which is a resource that helps you to generate electrical power. Now, the source is the crude oil, the oil rich itself, okay, which usually has unlimited or very large amount that you can use for a very long period of time, or that you can distribute across people, okay? So that is the concept you need to have with regards to source and resource. Now, if you get your money from resource, you are at the mercy of the system that created that product that becomes a resource to you. But if you get your money from the source, then you are a system on your own. Okay. Now, obviously, it's much more difficult to walk around a source than a resource. Okay. But uneasy lies the head that wears the crown, and no pain, no gain, really. So when you go towards the source, then you have a higher chance of, making more money, and more money that really lasts. Okay. So when you have this money, what do you do with the money? And this is important. Now, what you use your money to do determines how much money you will get and how long you're going to get that money for. Now, so if you can use the money to keep buying resource, okay, so that you can always have fuel, and power and all of that, which is good. Or do you invest or use that money to take care of that source and create platforms and systems and structures that allows the source to be more efficient? So that means that you are investing in the efficiency of the source, or the effectiveness of the source, than just buying the resource. Now, obviously, you know that you need larger chunks of money to work on the source and to invest on the source, and you really need a little less of money, on your resource. But all of these things goes to your mentality in the source. That are you thinking short term, or are you thinking long term? Do you have enough sense of delayed gratification to be able to pull resources together to invest towards the source? Or you're just working, and you're working on survival, just to make sure that every day counts and you're able to get something from it. But this is very important, and it's one of the things that would determine if the future of your personal economy is guaranteed, or you would always be at the mercy of the system. Now, when that is done, you also need to understand how to reproduce your money. How do you make your money work for you? Now, obviously, if you spend all the money that you have, then there's no way to reproduce that money. okay? If you save that money, you're not reproducing it, you are storing it. There's a difference between storage and reproduction. And the thing about storage is that the effect of time always creates a loss in the value of stored things, okay? Now, what you can do is to invest, is to send the money on errand, is to distribute the money into certain means. Now, these means could be through trade, it could be through source investment, you know, and some of the things I might also be able to talk about later. But the point is, you actually have to think about how is your money working for you? Now, there are basically two kinds of money. You have the seed money and you have the bread money. Now, the bread money is the one that you use for your needs and your wants and sustenance and survival, which is fine. But the seed money is the one you use in investment. They're the ones you use to reproduce, because a seed is what you plant and then germinates, blossom, and you have a lot more seeds, you know, from it. So you must always be thinking about it, that what are the things that I'm doing, or what are the things that I can do that would help me to reproduce my money? And circulation is very important thing to consider in it. So what is the cycle of your money? How does your money, you know, cycle? There's a whole system in finding that out. You know, we might not have all of the time to do that today. We also need to understand what is your personal economic cycle. So how long does it take when you get certain amount of money? How long does it take to exhaust that money? That is very important, because that shows, because timing is key. Time is a denominator for wealth. So if you get certain amount of money and within 30 days, within 15 days, you've exhausted that money. Now you really need to begin to think about it. Are you doing the right thing? Now, exhausting that money, is it reproducing it, or you're spending it and there's no way to get that money back? It's important. Your personal economic cycle must be key. So from the moment you get the source or the resource of that which becomes money to you, what are the things that you do with that money? Okay, so what you do with it and how do you reproduce it determines the strength of your personal economic cycle. Okay, the kind of people you also relate with and the kind of trade and transactions you do also, you know, has a lot to do in the quality of your personal economic cycle. But it's something that you also have to begin to think about. Now, this is more like a skeletal session, you know, so you really have to, you know, invest a lot more into understanding your personal economic cycle. So also, where does it end for you when it comes to getting your money? Where does it end for you, and how does it connect with other personal economies? You need to understand or learn from international trade. Usually, the world is becoming a global village. And so no country thrives or lives on its own accord. There's something you have, there's something other people have that you can always leverage on, you know, and also maximize. I don't know if you can hear certain sound, the background where I'm making recording of this, you know, it's a bit noisy. So please bear with me. I'll try as much as possible to be louder than the background noise so that you'll still be able to get the drift of what I'm actually trying to pass across. So where does it end for you? You must understand that when we're thinking personal economy, it does not end with you. If it ends with you, then you should charge the personal economic cycle, because the cycle must connect with other people. That's where trade comes. That's where platforms comes. That's where processes comes. Okay, that's where leverages come. And you must understand how to maximize and how to use all of these things. You'd understand this when we're talking about financial acumen, which may not be in the purview of this particular session. Now, moving on, I needed to go for, because there's certain sessions we need to bridge into. Now, the third protocol is case study. Now, there are three important case studies that would help you with this. So the first is understanding about the men who built America and how America was built. The second is understanding how Nigeria was built. And the third is understanding the concept of modern industrialists. All of these things are very important. So what is the precedence to all of these economies that we're talking about? Now, I will not really dwell on the men who built America, because there are certain videos online that you can find on that and resources that would really help you to understand that. So if you're really, you know, determined and interested about growing or understanding your personal economy, then you have to go read those resources. So you cannot expect to always be spoon-fed with all the things that you need. There's certain responsibilities that you also have to take for yourself. So go find the resources on the men who built America and see how during that time, and these are the things I want you to take a look at when you begin to revise that session. The problem statement, okay? The people who came together and the sectors they came from, the solutions they provided, and how many people provided that solution, and then the connection between the people who provided this solution. Okay, that is very key. And then you can now go back using, the second protocol that we talked about, to break these things down. The first and the second protocol, really, to see how the source of the money, the resource of the money, who held the source, who held the resource, and then what's the connection between the source and the resource. Okay, so that's that for the men who built America. So the one I really want to talk about is how Nigeria was built. And it's important for you to know this. Not Nigeria, we know that one of the things that came about the understanding of Nigeria was from colonialism. Okay, people who came from outside the shores of Africa to leverage on the wealth that Africa has. And what were the wealth? Sources. Remember, sources. What are the sources? Minerals, land, agriculture. These are sources, that these guys came on. So the whole idea is they came to take the source, refine it and all of that, and then they give us the resource. And that's slavery, if you really get to think about it. But that's not really the crux of what I'm going about when it comes to how Nigeria was built. It's important to understand that Nigeria was functioning through a decentralized system of government. Now, it wasn't fully decentralized. Now, in the concept of decentralization we had is in the form of ethnic groups or territories or communities. So we had chiefs, we had kings, who serves as supervisors or supervising authorities over the customs, the rules, the laws, of just a small group of people. And so when the colonialists came in, they realized that in order to maximize the whole of the wealth that the country had, they needed to take it as one organization, as one business, as one institution. And so in 1914, that's where the amalgamation came into place. Yes, we can argue that the amalgamation had there were good things about the amalgamation, just the same way as the northern and southern United States, amalgamated as well. Okay, so amalgamation obviously does have its own purviews and good sides, but the motive behind the amalgamation is something we really need to consider here. So when the Northern Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate, or the North, the West, and the East were amalgamated to form one nation, Nigeria, what was the reason for that? So some of the names that were important in this amalgamation endeavor were two people. We have Sir Georgie Goldie, and we have Sir Lord Lugard. Okay, so Georgie Goldie was a merchant, so that means he's a businessman. And basically what it does is, for people who have watched the Avengers, one of the things Thanos went about doing is he went about conquering civilizations, okay, conquering Earths, universes, so he was a merchant. So George Goldie was a merchant who would go into an arable land, an arable civilization, and go colonize it using business as a strategy. So the core strategy is, what they were going for was the source, so which is the gold, the diamond, the minerals, agriculture, and the cocoa and all of the things that we had. And they would give us back resources. So when we're thinking of power, when we're thinking of agriculture, no, not agriculture, when we're thinking of food, when we're thinking of clothing, what they hand over to us were resources, and they took off the source. Why? Because really at that time, we were not knowledgeable enough to understand how these things really work and how to really maximize this, which could also have been a disadvantage for the nation. So we also had Lord Lugard, because as the commercialization of Nigeria has started, the chiefs and some kings started revolting against that movement. And that's where we needed the mercenaries, the military mercenaries as Lord Lugard represented. So Lord Lugard was the one who was there to shut the mouths of people and have some form of order or peace, in quotes, as it were, just to make sure that the commercial avenue, continue. And so there were certain power points across the nation, across Nigeria. So the rivers were very important places because we needed ports for transportation of the sources and ports where the resources will be brought back to us. The lands, were also very important. Agriculture, so certain things grew well in the north. We also had crude oil in the east or south, the delta side. Okay, so these were areas, these were power centers of Nigeria. So Nigeria has 7 power centers. I will not really go into the full power centers because of how intricate these things are. But it's important for you to know that Nigeria had 7 power centers or 7-star system, and so one of them was the crude oil system, which was the wealth of the nation. We also have agriculture, and we also had the waterways. Okay, I'll just mention those 3 things. Now, it's important to know how these things work and how commerce was factored into all of this. I'm sure that there are also resources on this because I do not want to drift too much away from the personal economy that I'm actually thinking of. But it's important for, especially if many of the people who will be watching or listening to this are Nigerians, or even just for research purposes, you understand how the Nigerian business came. So when Sir George Goldie was able to officially amalgamate the Nigerian system forcefully, or and so the British government was now able to trade with Nigeria as an entity, as an institution, because trading, when we're talking about trading, it's important who you are trading with. So it will be a lot more burdensome to trade individually with this northern part, the western parts, and the eastern parts of Nigeria. But it will be better to trade under one name, okay, under one nation and under one amalgamation. Okay, so from 1914, from a business perspective, it became very easy to trade with Nigeria as one singular entity. So that means that even though we had different tribes, different tongues, different ethnic groups, and different norms and cultures, that amalgamation united or brought them together under one name. Now it's under one business name. That was the core of it. So it was through that business name that George Goldie had a business transaction with the British government, and then he sold that Nigerian business to the British government. And that's how Nigeria officially became under the British government. And they went on with that up until 1960, where the supposed independence of Nigeria from the British government. But when you really look at what independence means, it means that you free yourself from the system and structure of a certain influence. But is that the case today? We really can't say that is the case, okay? So we really need to understand how Nigeria was built, because it goes a long way in saying how things have become, and it's also a pointer to how things are going to go on later. Now let's move to the age of modern industrialists, and this is the place where you can carve out your own niche, and create something good for yourself. It is important to stress and also to note that there's a lot of knowledge involved in this. There's a lot of network that is necessary and association, okay? So you have to start thinking about the future and be ahead of the future before everyone catches up to it. That is how to hold on to the source. Now, the people who are ahead of the future, in the future, before the rest catch up with it, they are the ones who really own the sources and maximize things. Okay, so when you already own the source, the best you can give to the people is the resource. Okay. So for example, artificial intelligence is a source that's going to determine how a lot of things function in the next 5 years or 10 years, as the case may be. Commerce is also evolving, and it's important for you to latch onto that commerce. Communication, how we communicate is getting improved, because people like Elon Musk and the neural link is really going to revolutionize how things. Now, you have to think, it's about removing the mental blocks, guys. It's about removing the mental blocks. You have to begin to think about the reason why these people do this. Why are we rushing to Mars? Why was there a rush to the moon? Okay, why are we rushing towards the first country or the first continent to really make 5G mainstream? It's a battle for source. Whoever owns the source has the power. Okay, so we have to understand this. If we are laid back and we're all waiting for the resources, then we remain the slaves of the system. So artificial intelligence, commerce, communication, space exploration, blockchain is also very important. Virtual reality as well, because everyone is going virtual, so virtual reality is very important, and it's something to think about. So every system of government, of trade, of education will have an imitation in the virtual reality space. And the first set of people who are able to own that space and own that source, determines how things. With the nanobiotechnology also, stem cells, health, pharmaceutical, is really going to be going along with. So these are some of the case studies that you really need to read into and research into for you to be able to understand this. I wouldn't want this session to be as long as necessary. So let's go to the fourth protocol. Now, the fourth protocol is, what is your part to play in all of this? And this is where, it's really, it really comes to you. So we're going to take a look at market and media mastery. What does it mean? What does the competence quotient mean? And what does social quotient mean? And how can you use this to really improve yourself? So this is the fourth protocol we're looking at. And in this part, this is the part that decides if you would have a cut of the pie. So that means if you'll be a player in the game of the source, or you'll be a player in the game of the resource, okay? So the first thing you really have to think about is where you get to play your part is. What are you the go-to person for? What are you known for? This is important. Now, are you known for a source? Are you known for resource? Or are you known for nothing? Okay, you must learn creativity and innovation in this age. And one of the data that helps you with creativity and innovation is knowledge. Revelation knowledge, inspiration knowledge, scientific knowledge. You must be able to bring everything together. Okay, and that's why your network and association is very important. So what are you the go-to person for? And you need to think about it. If people don't know you for anything, if you don't stand for anything, then you've got a problem. So people like Rockefeller in his days, people like Bill Gates, like in our days now, people like Elon Musk and the Bitcoin guys, the Ethereum guys, they're the go-to people. And how do you become a go-to person? You establish yourself as an authority. Authority is not something people give to you, like in the age that we're at. Authority is something you take for yourself. You make yourself the go-to person. And there are ways to do this. So one way to do is either you become so good at what you do that people begin to look for you globally. So that is the competence quotient. What are you so good at that you are better than anyone else? So for example, in the Bible, Solomon, the son of David, was known for wisdom, that everyone in the world sought him out. Okay, so you must be so good at something, and that means you must invest into something. And for you to be so good at something, I must tell you, you have to understand the spiritual depth of these things. It's not just the intellectual depth. Okay, if you understand the intellectual depth of something, you are dealing with the resource. But if you understand the spiritual depth of things, then you're dealing with the source. Okay, so some spirituality must come on your intellectuality. Okay, and that's where spirit mentality really comes into place. So not to digress too much, you must be so good at something that people begin to look for you. Your fame goes wide. The same thing happened about Jesus. He started preaching a gospel that was out of the norm. It was nothing like anyone has heard before. And so people began to seek him out, even all the way from Greece. He had international visitation. So there are different things you can have. It can be products, it can be a message, it can be a system, it can be a principle. The idea is you must be so good at something that people begin to seek for you. You must become the authority figure, the thought leader, the driver of that phenomenon of that industry. And it is not beans, guys. It's not easy. You have to invest your life into it. Okay. You must be focused and all of that. So these are some of the things you have to do. And the second, that's the competence quotient. Now, the next way you can do it is called the relationship or the social quotient. So it's either you become so good in the place of competence, or you know so many people and these people think that you are good. So this is through relationship management and brand marketing. You must be able to project yourself in the social media space that a lot of people know you. So there are two ways to go about this. You either leverage on skill, on competence, or you leverage on visibility and publicity. But the better thing is why not combine both? Why not combine all three? So you become the go-to person. That means you're excellent and you know your onions. You are skillful and the whole world can testify to that. And the only reason that can allow the world to come to you is not because of your skill. It's because of the results. It's because of the solutions, okay? So it's not about the skills that you have. It's about the results that you can command and the solutions that you have to the problems that they have. So the bigger the problems, the bigger the solutions you have to the problems there are, the more your competence is grown, okay? And also you can also work on relationship with people, proper positioning, marketing, and putting all of these things out there, okay? So these are important. Now, all of these sessions are usually in the skeletal form. So if you really want to dig deeper into these things, then you might need coaching, you might need consulting, you might need advisory sessions, okay? This is online, so I can't really go into the depth of these things, but the idea is to just give you that light and believing that that light is going to direct your path, to that place of your destiny and to that place of great things, okay? So you must understand power dynamics. You need power to be able to do anything on this earth, to be known. So if we step back on this a bit, all of these things you need power for. You must get power somewhere along the way, or if you don't, someone has already robbed you of that power, okay? Social power, skill power, relationship power, you must learn how to use it to your advantage. And also, no one is ready to give up power. Understand this. You must be the one who is ready to take it through competence, through relationship management, through strategy, through policy, politics. Now, by politics, I don't mean going for political offices, but it's about understanding the structure of society and the place of influence, resources, and power dynamics thereof. Power is a game that you must understand, especially when it comes to societal power, business power, technological power, or even spiritual power. If that power dynamic is missing in your part, in your life, then you will not really be able to drive your own personal economy. Okay, so I'm ending this here because I really don't want to go beyond the 40 minutes mark because it's important to really keep the time. Now, if you have questions, if you have concerns, you can always comment below or find ways to reach me through any of these platforms, and then we can see how we can make something, work for you. Evidently, you need to understand that if you do not take your personal economy seriously, you will lose your personal power and you will become a slave of the system. So many of the things we're seeing now where the old money is wrestling with the new money. So fiat is wrestling with cryptocurrencies. You can also take a look at my session on decentralization. the future of leadership, commerce, and finance. That really breaks a lot of things down and you get an understanding of that, okay? So I'm going to be ending the session here, but this is no way it ends for you. Remember the things you're supposed to do, the research, the things you're supposed to read up. And also if you have certain questions, you can always hit me up, you know, and then we'll sort things out and we'll solve all of this. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope that you really make the best of your transition from dependence to independence and freedom in the true sense of the word. Okay, this is Harkheindzel Kenny Omiyale, and I say unleashing soteria, lambano soteria. Have a great one. Have a good one. God bless.